Hello and welcome to my review and impressions of the Halo Infinite multiplayer. All the gameplay in this video was captured on an Xbox Series S, but of course it's available on all other Xbox consoles, PC and xCloud. Remember, if you enjoy this video or find it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. It makes a huge difference and really does help smaller channels like mine to get seen. So, for the sake of clarification, this review is only for the multiplayer portion of Halo Infinite. Normally I wouldn't review the campaign and the multiplayer separately, I would just combine them into one full video. But for those of you that don't know, Microsoft and 343 Industries have decided to strip the multiplayer portion from the full game and release it as a free-to-play standalone multiplayer experience. So what's included in this package? Well, you get the typical training modes that you see in a lot of online shooters, which include matches against bots, and a short mission which acts as a bit of an introduction to the game's mechanics. You've also got a plethora of customization options, some of which are available from the beginning, but most are locked behind purchasing the Battle Pass and progressing through it. Then of course you have the actual multiplayer modes themselves, which includes a lot of the classic modes that you might expect, such as Slayer, Oddball, Capture the Flag, and Big Team Battle. So now let's take a bit of a closer look at some of these components individually. When you're ready to play online, you'll have a few options to choose from. If you opt for quick play, you'll be put into smaller, random 4v4 battles. Unfortunately, you won't get to choose which match you play, but you'll be put into one of 5 match types. Those are Oddball, Slayer, Strongholds, Capture the Flag, and a variant of Capture the Flag with only one flag. Oddball has both teams of 4 vying for control of the ball, which is actually a skull in Halo. Players will need to pick it up and hold onto it in order to score points. Slayer is your classic team deathmatch where your only goal is to kill the members of the other team. Strongholds is a bit like Control in Destiny, where you need to capture 3 different areas on the map and hold them to gain points. The difference here is that you can only gain points for your team while your team controls 2 or more areas. Capture the Flag is another classic mode that has you trying to steal the enemy's flag from their base and bring it back to yours to score points. Meanwhile, the opposing team is trying to steal your flag and do the same. And finally, there's that variant I mentioned of Capture the Flag, where teams take turns attacking and defending a single flag. If you don't want to play these smaller 4 vs 4 quick play matches, you can instead join the Big Team Battle playlist that bumps the player count up to 12v12 and includes larger maps and lots of vehicles. Again, in this mode you won't be able to choose exactly what match you want to play, but you'll be randomly placed into one of 4 match types. Those are Capture the Flag, Slayer, Total Control, and Stockpile. Obviously, Capture the Flag and Slayer don't really need any further explanation, but you do have Total Control and Stockpile. Total Control is a sort of larger variant of the smaller Strongholds match type. 3 random areas appear on the map, and your team needs to capture all 3. Once all 3 areas have been captured, those areas disappear and there's a small break for everyone to regroup. Then, 3 more random capture areas appear, and so on. And lastly, you've got Stockpile, which has your team battling for control of neutral power seeds that you need to pick up and return to your home base. Now let's just briefly go over the progression system and customization. Like many other free-to-play online shooters, this game has a Battle Pass. There's only one reward track on the Battle Pass, but there are some free items scattered throughout for people who simply want to play and not pay. Of course, the majority of the items and arguably the best stuff is locked behind the Premium Pass. The Premium Pass costs you 1,000 in-game credits, which equates to roughly £7.20 in the UK and about $10 in the US. You can also purchase a bundle that will give you an instant 25 level boost for 2,800 credits if you're so inclined. To make progress on the Battle Pass, you'll need to complete challenges during matches. These challenges have a wide range of requirements and grant various amounts of XP when completed. When this game released early on November 15th, 2021, the challenges were quite specific and rather difficult for the majority of people to actually complete. And you have to remember the challenges are the only way to gain XP and progress on the Battle Pass. Players began to complain about this very quickly from what I understand, and in response to this, 343 decided to update the challenges to be a bit easier to complete and also added one recurring challenge that requires you to simply complete any match for 50 XP. Once you do that, it resets and lets you complete it again and again, so at least you get a little bit of XP from each game you play. Each level that you gain on the Battle Pass unlocks new customization options, and there's a lot of them. Not only can you get armor parts like helmets and chest pieces, but also you can get different colored visors, emblems, stances, weapon charms, colors, and textures for the armor and guns, as well as vehicles and even more besides. And there really isn't much more to say about it, honestly. It's virtually the Halo multiplayer game that you've always known. Of course, there's some new weapons, match types, and maps, but if you've played any classic Halo games, you'll basically know what to expect. So now let's talk about some of the stuff that I personally enjoyed during my time with the game. So what do I like about it? Well, I think it's important to say that I've played every single Halo game since the very first one in 2001. I remember getting the game with my original Xbox on the day of release along with Jet Set Radio Future, Sega GT, and the first Splinter Cell. I do have loads of good memories of Halo as a series, and I'll be honest, the nostalgia is quite strong with this one. I mention this because it lets you know where I'm at when it comes to my opinions and where my inherent bias towards Halo comes from. That said, my best days of competitive online shooters are definitely in the past, and I don't have the skills to keep up anymore. But you know, it doesn't really matter, I just kind of hop into the game and I do my best. Sometimes I actually manage to pull off a pretty decent play and do some cool things like triple kills or whatever the case may be, but I'm pretty inconsistent. With those things in mind, I think the first thing I want to point out is the pure moment-to-moment gameplay. Just being in the matches, moving around the maps and shooting the other players, it genuinely feels very good indeed, and the sound design really helps to emphasize the sound of battle. I think everyone knows that Halo's music has always been top tier, but this time round I feel like the developers put a lot of effort into how the weapons sound as well. From firing your guns to hitting an enemy with a melee attack to the little kill confirmed sound you get when you defeat an enemy, it all just works and it sounds absolutely brilliant. As you move around the environment, you feel like your Spartan has some weight to them, and perhaps to some players it may come as a bit of a surprise to find out just how slow things actually are. Thing is though, that's Halo, that's how it should be, that's how it's always been. I mean sure you can sprint, but you don't feel like you're just ice skating across the map, you actually feel like an 8-foot tall super soldier covered in armor, which is literally what you're playing as. I think for the most part, this game plays exactly like a modern Halo should, at least in my opinion. I can almost guarantee that this will be too slow for some players, especially if you're used to things like Call of Duty or something like that, where the movement is very quick indeed. And also the TTK or time to kill in Halo Infinite's multiplayer is considerably higher than in those other games, so it would probably take a lot of getting used to. If you are one of those people, it won't mean much coming from me, I don't think, but I do understand it, and if you don't like it, I wouldn't worry about it. You don't have to like it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. For my personal tastes, I think it plays very well indeed, and you know, I'm not a teenager or in my early 20s anymore, so I'm actually thankful for the slower pace. Another thing that was apparent immediately was the visual quality and fidelity. Now as I said, I'm playing this on a Series S, and I have it running at a very stable 1080p 60 FPS, and it looks really nice on the type of TV that I'm using, which for those that are interested is a 4K QLED. The game has two modes, but both are locked at the same resolution. There's a fidelity mode which runs at 1080p 30 FPS and a performance mode that runs at 1080p 60 FPS. So I guess you aren't sacrificing any resolution for frame rate, but I would assume there must be some other visual niceties that are getting turned off in the performance mode. Honestly though, performance mode looks more than good enough to me. It doesn't exactly blow me away as a full-on next-gen game, but that's really because it isn't. I mean, it's been designed to work on Xbox One, Series S, Series X, and PC, so I'd imagine they built it with those platforms in mind. To my eyes, everything looks either good or great, which I think is more than adequate. And lastly, I just want to mention that I think that all of the customization stuff looks really nice, and there's a lot of stuff to unlock. I like all the different armor pieces and stuff that you can choose from, but it's a bit of a shame that they're all locked behind a paywall when previous games didn't do that. And that leads me neatly into the next section where we'll go over some of the things that I didn't like. So as I just said, the paywall bothers me, okay? But I understand it. I know exactly what they did and I know why they did it. Because it makes more money for them, it's as simple as that. Do I think they shouldn't be able to make more money? No, of course not. They're a business and that's what businesses do. However, I think the real issue is that in the past, the multiplayer was also just included in the full game, and often it had loads of customization that was just there. You didn't need to buy it or spend money on a battle pass, you just played the game and there it all was. Now to be absolutely fair here, you did have to buy the game at full price to get that, but you can get both this multiplayer portion and the campaign on Game Pass as part of your subscription. So I suppose that is pretty good value for money, as you can just join up for a month, play both the multiplayer and the campaign, and it costs you far less than buying the game outright. At the same time though, with the Game Pass you own nothing, and if you stop paying them, you lose it all until you start paying them again. It also has that in-game currency that you purchase with real money and then spend on cosmetics and XP boosters in the game's store, which again is something I'm not keen on. I just don't like these systems. They are literally and factually designed to manipulate you into spending more money, and the issue is, as I've said before, So many kids are growing up with this all around them, which over time normalizes it. And I've had some people ask me, well, what would you do then? How would you have released Halo Infinite's multiplayer? Well, firstly, due to Game Pass being Microsoft's big thing, I think splitting the multiplayer out for people who just want to play that and not the campaign is fine. However, I wouldn't have put any monetization into it whatsoever. I would have simply released the game with a completely free battle pass loaded with awesome items to collect as you leveled up. I also wouldn't have included any XP boosters or things like that, just cool stuff to unlock for your Spartan, and I would also run events, add new maps, and add new battle passes over time. And then the next question I'm asked is, how do you expect them to do all of that for free? Well, actually I don't. Microsoft is one of the most wealthy companies on the earth, and I believe that sometimes good press and goodwill with your customers is priceless. They can easily afford to support the game for as long as they want to, and just imagine what people like myself or Angry Joe, SkillUp, Yongye, any of those people would be saying if Microsoft took that approach. I'll definitely continue to point out things that I think are anti-consumer, but I really don't think anything anyone says will stop the steady march to an all-digital future. I don't like it, but I do understand why it's happening. Another thing I wasn't too happy with is that you can't choose the match type that you want to play. So for example, I really like Slayer, which is your classic team deathmatch mode, and you can play 4v4 or 12v12 with lots of vehicles. If I had a choice, that's pretty much all I would personally play. But you can't choose to play Slayer, you can only choose the playlist that Slayer is in. So what happens is that I choose quick play, wanting to play a Slayer match, and I get stuck with capture the flag or oddball. At the moment, the challenges that you need to complete to progress on the battle pass ask you to play certain types of matches as well, but you have no control over what matches you get, and you just have to hope that you get the right one. It's not the biggest of deals in the world, I understand that, and from what I hear they are planning to let you choose which match you want pretty soon, but why wasn't this just an option from the start? I mean, it doesn't seem difficult to understand. I mean, imagine if you could choose what you wanted to play and all I was playing was Slayer. Then a challenge pops up to complete an oddball match. Well, as it's for the battle pass, I would gladly jump into one or a couple of oddball matches just for the XP. I just can't speak for anyone else, so I don't know if other players would do that, but I would. I did think to myself that perhaps the challenge system actually informed their design choice for the playlists. I'm personally not really sure what happened there, but I think hopefully over time things will improve. Something else I wanted to mention is the weapons, and I don't really know how to say it, but I just feel like some of the weapons are utter crap. I just really do. I just don't know how else to put it. There's something like 22 weapons, I think, and after many hours in the game, I feel like maybe 8 of them are good at best. I have got better with them, I will admit, and I can literally hear people saying, it's because you suck with them, and yes, I take that point. You might very well be right. I just think some of them feel a little bit underwhelming, obtuse, and a little bit situational. I mean, the assault rifle is good pretty much all of the time, but there's this one gun that shoots, I think, red plasma or something like that. It might be called the Ravager, maybe. I might be mixing that up. But it just feels so weak, like you're using a water gun or something. And as I said, I have got better with some of them, much better than I was in the beginning, but I'm no pro when it comes to online PvP. Although when it comes to standard weapons like the assault rifle, battle rifle, sidekick pistol, or bulldog shotgun, I do so much better with these weapons than I do with anything else. I barely even remember what they're called, and quite often confuse them as they look remarkably similar at first glance. Over time though, I'm sure I'll come to know what they are and what they're called and what they do, but they just don't stick in my mind initially like other weapons do, so I don't know, it might just be a me thing. And lastly, I want to mention the progression. As I said at the start of the video, 343 have done a bit of a temporary fix. They released a patch that was around I think 700 megabytes, which made some of the challenges easier, removed some of the more ridiculous ones, and added a recurring challenge that grants 50 XP after every match, so at least you get something for your efforts. I'll be honest, it does kind of fix the issue, but not completely. I think if they fine-tune the challenges a little bit more to be perhaps a little bit more broad and simple to complete, it may help. And also allowing us to choose our game type would probably bring me back more often. But I think that about does it for this section, so let's move on to the conclusion. In my opinion, Halo Infinite's multiplayer is a very enjoyable PvP shooter that plays well, looks good, and delivers a genuine and classic Halo experience. There are some shortcomings in the progression, and yes, the monetization does bother me. To be honest, it probably always will, but it doesn't even come close to ruining the game for me. I think the fact that you can download this for free is a very helpful thing indeed, and I'm definitely not blind to the value that Game Pass bestows upon its customers. Sure, I don't personally like it from an ethical standpoint, but with Xbox you don't really have any other option. Even having a Series X and all the physical discs won't help you in the future. But I want to cover Xbox on the channel, so I do what I have to do. Ultimately, this is easily one of the best PvP experiences I've personally had in a long time. It isn't perfect, but I think the maps are pretty good, the gameplay is absolutely classic Halo, and the sound design ties it all together very nicely. This is just the multiplayer section of the game, and I don't think it reinvents itself, but that's the thing, it doesn't really need to. It just needs to be fun to play while adding a few little things here and there to update the formula. It doesn't need to copy, compete, or pretend to be other games. It just needs to be Halo, which this definitely is. So there you go, that's my review of the Halo Infinite multiplayer. It's available right now for all Xbox consoles, PC, and xCloud. If you have any questions, or perhaps there was something that I missed that you'd like to know about, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, I hope today will be the day that I earn your subscription, and if you want to support the channel even further, all the important links are in the video description down below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.